What's up, everyone? So here today I'm going to be doing a new episode of High Minds Entertainment. This is going to be a podcast that is going to be centered around talking about cannabis, basically, but we're also going to be talking about a lot of other different topics. One of the big topics that I'm going to be talking about today is the Karen Reed case. This is something that has been going around in my town for a long time. And when I say my town, it's the town I grew up in, Canton, Massachusetts. It's a very weird town that has a lot of weird hidden secrets. It's definitely a town that is very fun to grow up in due to the fact that there is a good amount of kids that were going to play a lot of sports and do athletic stuff. So it was a great place to grow up, but it's also a place that is very fun to talk about in this topic, just due to the factor of it being something that I am very close to and very much aware of, so I can give a different spin than a lot of these other people who are already speaking about it. With that said, we're going to cover a few different MMA slash boxing fights in the very beginning of this. We're also going to take a run into a few different topics later on through this whole episode. So let's get into it. First, I wanted to talk about Robert Whittaker's fight that he just had last weekend against Ikram Alaskraf or some. I'm definitely messing up the last name, but his first name is Ikram. This guy that he fought was a monster, someone who everyone was expecting to give him a very tough challenge, and it wasn't necessarily as tough as everyone was expecting. Me, myself, honestly, I thought Ikram was going to have a very, not easy time, but I thought he was going to have an advantage over Robert. So to see Robert be able to pull it off in this type of way was not only impressive, but it was definitely motivating to see someone like Robert be able to go against what everyone was predicting was going to happen and just dominate in a fashion that was just very fun to watch. So that was extremely fun, but it was also something that leads us to wonder what is next for someone like Robert Whittaker. Is he going to jump the line and get another title fight, even though he's lost in at least 2 title fights before? Maybe. I think that he is someone out of all of the people who could deserve it, but also it looks like Sean Strickland is something that would make a lot of sense to have as his next fight. Sean Strickland is someone who says that he's waiting for the title shot and actually deserves it. Out of anyone who deserves it, he deserves it. So it would be lovely to see Whittaker versus Strickland. Do I think it's going to happen? Probably not likely, due to Strickland saying he's going to wait. So this is leading them to a great opportunity. Both of them probably could fight for the title in the near future, even though they've both held the title at one point and have lost the title at one point. But they both deserve another shot at it. So whichever one gets it, most likely being Strickland, I think it's well deserved. But them fighting each other, ooh, that would be fun. That would be entertaining as hell, because Strickland's defense is super sound. He's someone who is great with his striking and just overall great with going up against someone with the style of a Robert Whittaker, but not a lot of people have a very exact style as Robert Whittaker, so it would just be very entertaining to see who was able to pull it off on that night. Let's skip forward a bit. We're going to go to the Ian Gary versus Michael Venom Page fight. This one right here is definitely something that I am very much looking forward to. It's actually coming up very soon, and it's going to be a fight that is going to be extremely interesting due to their styles. But it's also going to be a fight that is going to be extremely hard to predict. I can't necessarily say that I am favoring either one. I think that both of these guys are almost identical in their skill sets. They both have very high level striking. They're very good with their counter strikes, but they're also good with their blitzing attacks. So, who's going to win? I don't know. I think that this one's super fun to watch. if I had to guess, I'm going to say Michael Venom Page is going to win just off of experience. He's been in so many more fights than someone like an Ian Gary, but he's also been someone who has actually taken a loss, which we haven't seen with an Ian Gary. So who's going to win? It's going to be a fun one to see. I think that either which way it goes, it's going to be very much entertaining and just mind-bending to see who's going to be able to pull this one off. But that leads us to a fight that is going to be boxing, but it's going to be between two people who are very interesting to watch. Very interesting is an easy way of saying it, but it's the best way of saying it because Jake Paul versus Mike Perry. Who would have thought this was going to happen besides Mike Perry? Mike Perry has been anticipating this for a long time, which gives him an edge over someone like Jake Paul, who is still a little bit green to the sport. He hasn't been around boxing for that long, but he's done some insanely interesting things within his time of being here. So, who's going to win? I would say Mike Perry. And I hate to go back on exactly what I just said, the reason for Michael Venom Page winning is, but I do think that it's going to play a huge role. I think having experience against these savages who actually have the opportunity of shutting your lights off gives you the opportunity of finding comfortability in those positions, and also gives you an opportunity of finding ways of maneuvering away from those styles, and is very much going to be huge in why I think Mike Perry is going to win. Also, Mike Perry is someone who can take a shot. He's not going to go in there fearful of being hit. And one thing I think that is always happening in a Jake Paul fight is a lot of people go into the fight with almost the reverse, not reverse, but similar psychological disadvantage that people were going into Mike Tyson fights with. People would go into a Mike Tyson fight assuming that they were going to lose and almost like counting the seconds until they lost. So they were putting themselves in these vulnerable positions where they would get countered and they would get made to look like the fool. In a Jake Paul fight, I see a lot of people going into the fight not wanting to look like a fool so much that they make themselves look like a fool. Why am I saying this, and why am I saying this so confidently? When you go up against someone who is formerly a Disney star and someone who is formerly this, not even formally, he's someone who talks very softly. He's someone who talks in a way that you would not expect him to be someone who is able to shut your lights off. He's very confident, he's very cocky, but he's also very childish in a lot of ways that is very much going to make a lot of people, they're gonna be fearful of losing to him. Very fearful of losing to him. If someone is that goofy and that animated and also is able to shut your lights off, it's going to bring this sense of fear, and just you're not going to want to take all of those steps that you might think are easier to take against someone who is lesser of a man, or maybe not lesser of a man, but lesser of a clout demon where it's going to very much come to bite you in the ass. But when we look at all of these different fights, we get to see that it all definitely comes down to a psychological factor and who's really psychologically ready to put it all on the line. Not a lot of people. I totally understand why. I think that when you put it all on the line, obviously it gives you an opportunity to be judged, but it also gives you opportunity for people to really damage you. And that's not only physically, that's mentally, That is very interesting to see when we look at a lot of these different people who take losses to these social media stars and never come back, or if they take a loss to someone who they just did not have a lot of belief in and they just become a shell of themselves. We see this a lot of times in martial arts, in boxing, in any of these combat sports, due to the factor of them having so much confidence in themselves, so much belief in themselves, so much faith in themselves that they thought that they were invincible. They thought that they were untouchable. So it is hard. It's a hard pill to swallow. Let's say it like that. I guess that's a great way to sum it up. But that leads us into a topic that I heard covered on Joe Rogan's podcast. I want to cover this one before we get into the Karen Reed topic. Supposedly, there is a nuke that just got put over by Miami by the Russians. What? This doesn't even sound real. But it is real. So, this is definitely a topic that I did not want to cover. It's not a topic that I have much knowledge on, much that I could feed into it at all, besides the fact that we are so hidden from this message. If this is true, this hasn't been on the news as much as some of these weird issues that who really gives a shit about are on. It doesn't make a lot of sense. There's topics that get put on the news and get fed through the news as a constant way of them distracting the people. And when we see something like this that is not going to do good if we stay distracted from it, it leads us to think, why are we ever distracted from the bigger issues and the issues that we actually are faced with that could very much kill us off or lead us to not being able to have a future, is a better way of saying that for YouTube. But this is interesting as hell because obviously me hearing about this from someone like Joe Rogan is not good. Not good at all. This isn't someone who has the credentials or the credibility to be speaking on topics like this. Very much like myself. Very much like myself. I don't feel like I'm suited to speak about this. And it's not only because I'm wearing a weird t-shirt and not dressed in a suit. I think that there's a lot of reasons why I don't feel confident in speaking about this. But I feel as if I'm going to be not the only one, but one of the only ones who actually takes the initiative to speak on it. So what does this mean for America? Is America in its final last days of being this superpower that is invincible, that thinks it can't be beaten, similar to what I was just speaking about when it comes to some people just thinking that their shit doesn't stink when it comes to fighting? Maybe. I think we kind of are in a position where people are scared to bite the bullet, they're scared to face the facts, and they're scared to see what is happening to us. And it makes a lot of sense why. I don't want to accept it. I don't want to accept that we are coming to an end and we're coming to our final days where we now have to lie to ourselves to make ourselves feel better. No, I don't want to accept that. I don't want to see that is reality, but it is reality, and it is definitely something that we have to stumble upon actually coming to grips with. Whether or not we're going to be the people who want to go out there and fight against it is up to us. That is solely up to us. And it is hard to speak about this right now. I don't know what to say that's going to make anyone snap into sense and snap into what is reality. But if this is reality, if there's a nuke facing right at me and you right now, and we have no option on moving it, doing anything, then what can we do as a society to counteract that? What is the counter strike for that? There's only one thing I can think of, and that is coming together to make a stronger power, to make something that is very much strong, that isn't fighting against each other due to this puppet saying this or this puppet saying that. It's because we want change. That's it. We want change. We either want to bring America back to what we used to have it as, or we want to completely belittle it and change it for the worse. What do you want? I want change in the better. I don't want to be one of these fucking puppets who allows the fucking masses or allows these big suited weirdos to make decisions for me. I want to make decisions for myself, and I'm going to. So, not to get all dramatic and fucking chaotic with the way I'm speaking, but we as people need to stop fighting each other and look at what is the big issue in this game of charades. It's reminding me of this song War Pigs by it's Black Sabbath, I think. They say the rich have, basically, I'm going to sum it up. They say the rich have the poor go out and fight for them, because why would they fight in these situations when they can have some fools go do it for them? It makes a lot of sense. We're living in this time right now where people are having the poor and having the less fortunate go and fight their battles when it's battles that is only enriching them. It's basically a charades game of fools playing into the hand of these masturbators. Sounds very weird me saying that, but I'm saying that they're masters at baiting people in. Hope that's falling on the right ears so people aren't straying off with that. But it leads me into the topic of Karen Reed very well. This leads me into this topic very well because a lot of people are finding any way to split apart right now. Whether or not it's picking this side, picking that side, picking this side, or picking that side. It doesn't fucking matter which side you actually pick, as long as you're actually standing true to facts and staying true to all of that. Because at the end of the day, you could be friends with this side, friends with that side, and you could still go against what they picked as a decision in what is right to do if you are someone who stands with logic, and if you are someone who stands with principles. If you stand with these principles that you set for yourself, then when someone goes against those principles, you as a human being should be more outspoken, or at least take it on as what it should be taken on as a mistake for that person, as them doing something that is incorrect, not as them being a totally imperfect person now that you have to hate or whatever, but you have to correct that mistake. If you don't correct that mistake, it continues to build and build and build and gets worse and becomes this fucking creature that no one can deal with. And it becomes this monster that starts running over into all of these different situations where it becomes this corruption cycle of nonsense where people don't know what to do and don't know how to get out of it. Everyone's fighting themselves on what is the right thing or what is the wrong thing. What is actually the right or wrong thing in the bigger picture? That is the only thing we need to worry about. Not whether or not this player in the game is making a fool's mistake, or if this player in the game is doing this or that. If we're criticizing ourselves upon all of these nitpick hot girl issues, all of these things that you would see, all of these girls who think that their shit does not stink in school would have been throwing at each other. When we're throwing these insults at each other, then we are very much missing the point. We are very much missing what is actually in front of us, and we are giving the opportunity to the savages. We're giving the opportunity to the Brian Alberts to use the puppets and use the pawns in the game as they wish, and they will do it as they wish. So I hope this isn't going over people's heads, what I'm saying right now. But what I'm saying is, if we don't actually take the initiative of being grown adults, then someone else will. And if it's the wrong person, then that person will manipulate us in any which way they see fit and make us play the game for them. And just as that song War Pig says, they will use the poor, they will use the less fortunate to be the slaves in their game of warfare. So, right now, this is hurting America. This case is very much hurting America because it's another way people are splitting hairs and splitting each other to find a side to pick, and it's all this weird game of high school antics where everyone's trying to fit in, everyone's trying to pick a side, and we see it on the free Karen Reed side as well. We see a lot of these little fucking yes men who are picking a side and picking an opportunity to become part of the crew or part of the group, and no shame to them. That is their survival instinct, but it is what it is at the end of the day. We have to take notice to what facts are. We can't hide from reality. We can't act as if reality is some stubborn thing that we have to act as if isn't there. We have to face reality. Reality is never going to change unless it gets worse. So, unless you want it to get worse, we have to face it now. And that just is what it is. It is continuing to be in the spiral of getting worse, because I think that even the people who are on the good side, the side of what is supposed to be right, they are falling victim to this cycle of trying to be the knight in shining armor. They're trying to be the crown jewel of the whole experiment, in which this is. It seems to be somewhat of an experiment, because even the side of the free Karen Reed side right now is seeming to think that what they're doing right now is using her as this pawn in their game of trying to use her to bait out lies from the Alberts, the people who are in this position of power. Maybe that's the case, but if that's the fucking case, then come on now. What are we doing? What are we doing? We can't figure this out in a better way. We can't actually go about this in more of a strategic way. We have to use pawns. Maybe. I don't know. But I'm not going to get all riled up and get off track. I truly do think that we are in a position now today where the adults have not came back. The adults have went off. They're at recess. They're at whatever vacation spot, and they're gone. So now what we have to do is become adults ourselves. Whether or not it's someone like me who's 24 years old and is not in a great financial position, not in a great position at all. So a lot of people are going to overlook anything I say. But we have to become the adults now. We have to take the initiative to take that next step forward of evolution, of whatever the fuck you want to classify it as. We have to take that step. So, what do? Do we just put on a suit and tie and start pretending and start doing all that? No. We have to look inside ourselves to see how this even became a possibility in the first place. How are all of these people actually falling into this position of trying to protect and trying to stray away from reality? How is this possible? Is this something that we actually played a factor in making possible? Before I can say it's your fault, let me tell you how it's my fault. The way that I could say this is all my fault is because I'm a very, very competitive person. I come from a place where it is very competitive. I come from the East Coast. I come from Massachusetts. I come from a place that is not too far away from Boston. I come from Canton, Massachusetts. The fucking place that is the hub of this Karen Read case. So, what I can say is my fault is I'm very competitive. I'm someone who is very much competitive in all ways. I'm someone who wants to be the best, and I'm very critical of myself, and that gives opening for me to be critical of other people as well. But when I say I'm competitive, what I mean by this is I come from a place that is very competitive in sports. We're also very competitive in all ways. We are competitive when it comes to whose side we're picking in a case, in a trial, in a thing that really should not be something we pick a side on. So, how can I say this is a reality in all of the United States? Look at the election right now. People are very much cutting their own family off, cutting their own friends, their own people who they grew up with and made them who they are today. They're cutting them off because of these weird elections. And when I said earlier, we're picking which puppet we feel is suited best, I mean that very confidently. I think that we're in this game of charades where people are not very much listening to these people who they even pick the side of. They very much are picking sides just to fit in, and it's a survival thing in a way. It's almost similar to when someone knows that this side is a little bit more tougher, so they're gonna kiss the ass of that side through in and throughout, just so they can make sure that they can get a seat at this table, so they can sit with the cool kids. It's all a game that we all played in high school, and somehow, some way, we're still playing it. It's weird. I dropped out of high school. I tried to get out of high school. I tried to get away from that whole scene as fast as I could. One of the reasons for it is because of diabetes. I had diabetes, and I actually got diabetes at the age of 13. It wasn't something that was great, but nowadays I look at it to be my superpower. The reason why is because it made me an individual. It made me someone who felt as if I would rather stand out than fit in. And that led me down a lot of bad situations. It is what it is. It's a character builder. It's something that I am very grateful for in the bigger picture. I look at diabetes to be my superpower because it's something that opened my eyes to all of the different mistakes that I was making in order to get the results that I was getting and continuously can keep getting. I was a sad case, very much, for a long time. Not necessarily someone who's evolved much from that, but I've learned to identify what was making me be that person. So, when I relate this to the case, why do I relate this to the case? I think that we all are in this comfortable position where if I didn't get myself out of that position, I would have been this very cruel person. I would have been this very cruel, trying to take all of my anger out on people type of person. And I found outlets such as martial arts. I found outlets such as talking into a camera, feeling like a fool the whole time. And these things are able to help me get my angers, my traumas out. We could say it like that. And I think everyone needs those things, but sometimes people latch on to different societal groups, such as, I'm not going to say that one, let's say Democrats or Republicans. People will latch on to these things so they can find identities, find ways to feel comfortable in their own skin. And We all are going to find ways of doing this. No shame to anyone's game of doing that. I think that it is one of the hardest parts of life, is finding comfort in our own skin. But it is what it is. It's something we all lack with. We all need to have a constant struggle in finding the way of doing it. But when we jump into these crowds of the Karen Reed's guilty or Karen Reed's innocent, or we jump into the crowds of Democrat or Republican, and we do it just based on trying to fit in, we muddy the waters and we make it very bad for the up and coming people. Which leads me to the quote that I say probably too much, but hard men make soft times make soft men make hard times, and we're in the time of soft men making hard times. We're just in this cycle of people making it worse and worse and worse for everyone that's coming up after them, because they don't give a fuck. They don't care at all. All they really care about is themselves. Tim Dillon speaks about this a lot, and I keep going off track, but I feel like this is still on track. Tim Dillon speaks about the boomers and how the boomers made it worse for the up and coming people because they didn't care. They didn't care at all. They cared about themselves, and that's it. And it's true. It's very true. It's very provable as well, but it's something that is sad and is something we kind of have to come to grips with. We have to not be those people, and we have to care about the people that are coming up after us. Not to the point where we're going to make it so hard for them, becoming those strict parent type of people where we shuttle everyone away or shelter everyone away from the struggles, because everyone needs struggle to become okay with themselves and come to this point where they're not going to be making it harder on everyone else around them. I think struggle very much helps with that, but we have to come to grips that we aren't these perfect characters. We aren't going to make it very much easier on the people just through financial ways, just through all of these luxurious ways, but through character building of ourselves and through putting ourselves through struggle that is going to make us see the realities that we didn't want to see. Once you come to grips with not being this perfect flower that is always going to do right even when you're doing wrong, once you come to grips with that, then you actually are able to become something that is closer to perfect, and that is just imperfect. Once you are imperfect and you are aware of that and are aware of all your insecurities and your vulnerabilities and all of these different things that hold you back, then you are able to strengthen someone else. You are able to teach then and only then. But when you hide from all of the things that are insecure and things you don't like, then you're never able to teach. You're always in this constant cycle of hiding and hiding from what is reality. So I hope this was something that made sense right here. I'm gonna try to transition now to a different topic. I feel like that one was a powerful one, so I definitely will try to continue to speak more on stuff like that. I don't want to continuously speak on the same topic over and over and over and over and over, being one of those grandpas that you don't want to continue to listen to. I want to continue to grow and evolve with everyone that listens. So, much love and respect to anyone who has listened this far into it. I know sometimes listening to people talk about these types of topics, it's so difficult. It's so difficult because it sometimes makes us aware of the mistakes that we're making, and sometimes even makes us relate to the people we don't want to relate to. So I'm glad people are taking the chance to do this right now. And anyone who's listening to this part right here, you are someone who not only is in the perfect time to grow, but you're also in a very mature time where you're able to listen to someone like me and take pieces of it and use it for yourself. So this is me trying to show all respect to you and even take notice to how strong of a person you are. Let's finish off the Karen Reed case before we move on to another topic. The Karen Reed case, I do think that they muddied the waters enough for no one to ever go down for this now. I think that it is very much insane when we see the situation that Brian Albert, Colin Albert, Jen McCabe, and all of these characters that play a huge role in this whole case, when they were sitting behind the O'Keefes the other day, it just made me feel a little bit weird. It also made me kind of question in my head, because I'm someone who tries to stay in the middle. I try to stay in the middle of all situations. I want to fully hear everyone out because I've been the person who hasn't been heard out before. So I now am in this position of never being in each side or any side of any situation. I try to stay away from that. So when I was watching that the other day and I see Brian Albert so close to the mother, so close to the people, and keeping kind of a straight face, his body language wasn't super telling. I almost was feeding into that and almost was like, is it possible I was wrong this whole time? Is it possible that I was over assuming? Maybe. So it was something that I had to take notice of and almost think about in a way where I was thinking about, why am I almost giving them a chance now? And I thought it was a very strategic thing. Do I totally think that that was the only reason that they were there? Maybe. I don't know. There's so many things, so many ways I could go about this right now. I don't know for certain on any of what happened. I don't know. As I said, I try to stay in the middle. I try not to over assume until I know for certain. But if I had to guess, I would say that it's very much a telling sign when they tried to attack Turtle Boy the other night when he was at CF McCarthy's. I would say that that's a very telling sign that they have a guilty conscience. I would say it's a very telling sign. Also, is it possible they would do something like that just to get back at him for spreading rumors about them? If it was rumors, sure, maybe. But the way that they were going about it was not in that certain way. They didn't say you are spreading lies about us. From what I heard, they didn't say that at all. They actually were more or less just throwing insults in his way. So, if you were in a position where someone's spreading lies about you, your counter to that, I would safely assume, would be to try to debunk their lies. That's how I would go about it. If I was trying to completely take wind away from their sails, I would debunk their lies. It's the only thing I would do, to be honest. I think that if you don't debunk it, but just throw insults to that person's way that is supposedly throwing insults your way, you're just fanning the flames. You're just making it worse. And I don't see how that was a way of them showing any way of them being innocent. What it showed me was a guilty conscience. Maybe I'm reading too far into that. Maybe. Have we seen other things throughout this whole case that fan the fame, fan the flame even further for us to believe them as being the ones with the guilty conscience, and them to be the ones as the ones looking guilty in this situation? I would say they look as the guilty ones. I don't think it looks as if Karen Reed has any real way for her to be proven to be the one that has done this. It appears that the guy's name's slipping my brain. He's kind of an important character in the game, but he's kind of not. But the one who they believe was part of this, slipping my brain. Slipping my brain. The guy was like an FBI agent, or he was more or less like one of those people who is a drug enforcement agent. Slipping my brain. I don't want to keep saying that, but he said that he's seen a tall guy with darkish hair come into the room or come into the house. They say that they parked in a position where it wouldn't make a lot of sense. The same guy, Brian Higgins. So he supposedly parked in a position where he would have been blocking the possibility for it to have happened. All of these things align for it to make more sense that John O'Keefe actually went into the house. So when we look at it like that, and we get to see that all of the pieces of the puzzle seem to form around Karen Reed not being responsible, it's very much insane when we see people still throwing her under the bus. But we also got to look at that as insane, that if it was the possibility of the FBI or whoever using her as a pawn in finding lies, that would also be insane as well. So it's just so interesting of a case that either which side you're on, if you're someone who is picking a side, it's hard to not look at Karen Reed to be the one that looks to be more innocent in a comparison to someone like a Brian Albert. And then when we look at the body language that Brian Albert had the other day, it was very telling of someone who seems to be guilty when they brought up things that were almost accusing him and not accusing Karen. He looked flustered. He didn't look like he was comfortable. He didn't look like he was happy to hear that stuff. So very interesting to say the least. And this is going to be my attempt to transition into a different topic. I see that now in America today, we are in a very interesting time. So we kind of are forced into these positions of trying to find fun in any which way possible. One of the ways that I am aiming to find a little bit of fun in, and I've also seen a few other growers, a few other, well, I'm not going to say other because that would make me sound like I'm a grower, but a few other people that are in the cannabis field. I see a lot of people trying to start up these boxing events, and I think that it would be really fun. I think it would be really dope for the people to get an opportunity to humble themselves. Not only humble themselves, but see someone that they may look up to get humbled, or someone that they look down on get humbled, for them to be able to look at them more as a human, bring them more down to earth. And I think it would be really good for the people. So it's something that I am in the aims of really trying to do. Do I see a lot of faith in it really happening? No. mainly due to the egos of a lot of the players that would have to jump into the game. But a good way of getting this done would be to do a mixed bag one in the beginning. Get someone who's really popular in the cannabis fields, and or two people that are really popular in the cannabis field, get them to fight, and then on the undercard have people like me fight someone else, and have other people fight in that, and do almost a YouTube style celebrity boxing type thing where people can get a little bit of traction off of it, build a name for themselves, and all of that fun stuff, but also give an opportunity for other different things to get into the game. Maybe even YouTube boxers or stuff along those lines. Have them in there and mix it up a little bit. Obviously, the aim for something like that would to be all cannabis influencers or cannabis growers to be the ones fighting, but that would be more down the line. I think that it would be something that would be really cool to at least start it off with something that's big enough to get attention, because I know that they've been doing it in Texas for a while where it's not really ever getting a lot of it's not getting a lot of attention. If I'm not mistaken, I think they have semi-pro boxers and they just box during it, but I think more or less what I'm aiming to do is to have influencers and people that are actually in the game fight, so that they can potentially build a name off of it, get a little bit more attention off of it for their brands, and also so they can humble themselves, maybe if they're someone that's not very humble, or if they are someone that is humble, at least just give a little bit of a different look for the cannabis game. I know a lot of people are seeing a lot of these scam pages pop up where it's a lot of people scamming each other, and also a lot of people scamming people when they are reporting on scams. It's a constant cycle of everyone trying to get over on each other. So if we bring a little bit more structure to the whole culture and bring a little bit more of a backbone to it, then I do strongly believe we will be able to conquer all of those scams and conquer that as being something that is so popular. But the reason for that is because it's going to bring a little bit of fear and respect into everyone. Everyone's going to fear the possibility of them being the person that is on the shit end of the stick of a knockout in one of those situations, or just a loss. And I think that that is really good for the people. Whether or not it's something that is really good for people's brains is up to them if they win, but it is definitely something that is really good for everyone to be humbled. And I think that that is something that is very much something that goes with cannabis, because every time you smoke cannabis, in my experiences, I feel as if it is something that humbles me more and more all the time. And the reason why is because it makes me more aware of my insecurities. It makes me a little bit better with my anxieties and stuff like that. But it is definitely something that is more of a reality drug or plant. When we look at alcohol, it is more of something that gets you out of reality and gives you that drunk confidence. But cannabis is more or less something that makes people who are a little bit insecure feel a little bit more comfortable in their skin, but also take notice to any flaws that they may have on their skin, or just any of the flaws that they have within. So when I say a cannabis boxing event would be perfect for everyone, I think that it's a yin and yang. It has something that will humble people, bring them down to their lowest, but show them what is truly important. So I hope that was a good enough sales pitch for that. I hope so. But when we look at America right now, we see that everyone is financially not doing great. even the best of the best brands are not necessarily doing insanely well right now. From what I see, prices are extremely high on terrible products, and some of the greatest stuff in the world is going for dirt cheap. We see some of the best outdoor flower going for close to nothing right now, and that is actually going to be the stuff that's actually going to get you the highest. So it's interesting. It's something that leads us to think, like, is the whole financial side of America making it so much harder for Americans, and is that resorting into a lot of crime and all of that stuff? Maybe, maybe, but I truly think that when it comes to just America with financial struggles right now, I think that humans are very much focused on things that aren't going to benefit them, whether it's politics, whether it's any of those things, and maybe it could benefit them in ways, but when it comes down to it, we need to find more structure within and find more ways of making money in proper ways. So when we see all of these struggles, it's not surprising. There's a large amount of the market in cannabis that is being ran by sprayed terps and all of these genetically modified things. So it is not surprising when people aren't able to make a lot of money in the growing of the flower. I feel like that is something that needs to be promoted a little bit more, but at the same time, maybe I have to say this in a better way and figure out a better way to present this as a message for the people, because I do think that right now, not only is America in a financial struggle, but a large amount of the world is, and whether or not that's because Biden's the president or because Trump was the president before, it's up to us to figure out, I guess, whether or not we have some high leader as this person is all up to our vote, and whether or not our vote is actually being taken serious is all. It's up to us. All of it is up to us. We have a lot more power than we really give ourselves credit for. So when we look at the market of cannabis, I think that we could very much have a huge effect on that. And if we are able to have an effect on that, then our political landscape is also something we have a huge opportunity of having an effect on. So when someone like me is the person who is speaking out, I know a lot of people are going to be very much taken back and not going to want to listen to it, but they're also going to have to, because it's going to be something that is going to be noticed by someone who is on a lesser level than you. So whether or not you want those people that are on a lesser level than you to be the one that is only taking notice and the only one that is having opportunity of using it to their own good is up to you. And when I say that, I know I'm putting other countries completely out of the box and they're not going to be able to listen to that. So it is what it is. Much love and respect to everyone from America right now. We're going through a very tough time. And when we have people like me as the one talking for us, we feel like we have no opportunity of getting better, but I think this is the best opportunity for us to grow right now. I think this was something that was very much needed for Americans to come to grips on what is possible, and no matter how long some of these other empires have had reign over the world is kind of doesn't matter at the end of the day. If these if these empires only had it for that long, that is bigger motivation for us to keep it longer. And with that said, we all have to come together. In this Karen Reed case, we have to find a way of finding common grounds and coming to a understanding on how this happened, also coming to an understanding on who actually needs to be found responsible of this situation, whether or not it is Karen, I don't think is smart, but we have to find a common grounds of coming on something. And if we're going to find Brian Albert guilty, Brian Higgins, or any of these characters who are power hungry and very much only trying to use the people as pawns in their game, then it is what it is. So I do think we all have to find a way of just today finding common grounds with someone who you don't necessarily like, but it's not necessarily a beef that is so drastic that you have to go take their life. If it isn't that drastic, then today try to find some way of moving forward in coming to a resolution. So much love and respect for anyone in America right now. I know this has been basically all America based for today, but it's what I care about. It's what I care about right now, and I really want more people to find a way to care about it and not fake care where they're doing this political stunt of trying to get people to love them and all that shit. We have to really find a way to not only make people a little bit angry, but get people to understand. So whether or not people are going to hate you in the end is up to you, and it's not always up to you, actually. I probably should take that back right there and say it's not up to you, actually. It's not up to you at all whether or not people love or respect you, but what is going to be up to you is whether or not they actually listen to you and are actually taking you serious. So if you are someone in this whole stunt of trying to make someone look guilty when they're not guilty, that will come back to bite you. And if you can accept that, then go ahead, try it. But if you can't accept that and you can't accept the outcasting that they will do to you when they actually come to find out the real truth, then don't even try. Actually take the real responsible route and look at this from a bird's eye view and try to see how you are someone who could have done better on not even allowing this to happen in the first place. So much love and respect. I'm going to be going to New York this weekend, so probably not going to be doing a lot of content this week. I'm going to try to stop at Central Park or I think Grand Central Park. I think that's the huge park in New York. I'm actually going to be staying right over by there, so I'm going to try to do a nice little walkthrough of Central Park, do a little vlog of that, maybe talk a little bit while I'm doing a vlog of walking through there, and do a walking and talking vlog. I almost said a walkie-talkie. Do one of those, but I'm also going to be doing a lot of different content while I'm in New York, so be ready for a lot of content next week. I'm going to be in New York this Saturday and Sunday, so much love and respect to anyone I see out there. And if you have made it through to this end, you are someone that has a lot of patience, and you have a big opportunity of using your patience to help a lot of people. So I hope you do that, and I hope you take your own initiative in growing whatever, either if it's a media space, whatever you're doing in your own life. I hope you know that you have a lot of opportunities of not only doing what you're doing now, but doing much, much more. You have the patience of listening to someone like me, so you also have the patience of really taking that next step in whatever you are trying to overcome. So much love and respect, and I hope you actually take that opportunity and seize it.